Yes, gang, what we saying? I hope we are all good. Welcome back to the YouTube. Very excited to run you through this one. So, something a little bit different today. I'm going to run through some updates, let you know where I am with things currently at the moment, and then I'm going to do a voiceover of my upper body workout today. So that you'll see this the following day, but I will run you over the workout in detail, the exercise selection, what I'm thinking about when I'm performing the movement, just to try and give you guys a little bit of insight in regards to what I'm thinking about during my training, where my mindset is, what sort of cues I'm trying to think about when performing. And I thought it would be quite a good way for me to be able to give back to people who tune in and watch the videos. So yeah, updates from me. Body weight trended down quite significantly. So I'll pop some fasted visuals here from Thursday. This is the final week where we're doing a little bit of a midweek check-in still, me and Moggs. So sending over some visuals to him. Body weight had come down across a 4-day period by about 1.2 kg. So certainly nothing to be concerned about. But obviously reviewing the visuals when you're in a reverse phase, you're tapering food up. Training performance is now back at 100% as well. Fucking come on. Absolutely buzzing to be back at full fettle. First week back at the crease where I've actually felt good across a full 4-day training block. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Friday, I'm running sort of a push-pull legs off, upper body on a Friday, and then I have a full weekend off the gym, basically. So that is how we currently structure things at the minute. But it's the first week back where I've been able to push to failure. I've trained to full maximum intensity. I've come out of the sessions feeling good, with a good pump, energy still in a good place, cognitively feeling in a good place as well, which I'm really, really pleased about. The coming out the other end of the dieting phase, we had to push hard. It wasn't a long preparation for the photo shoot, but we did have to, put our foot on the gas, so to speak, and over quite a quick period of time, I got very lean. And I felt, I didn't feel too bad during the actual diet itself. There was some days where obviously hunger was present. I was ratty, I was moody, but I got through it. I was absolutely fine. And I had that little bit of a kick coming out the back end of it. And then all of a sudden, it just seemed to hit me like a train. And it took me a good, what's this now? It was 4 weeks today, the photo shoot. So it took me about 3 weeks, really, to really sort of get back in the groove of things, which, yeah, it's to be expected. We had moderate intensity and, food still relatively low. I'm very proud actually of how I've managed the reverse phase. I haven't overeaten. I've not eaten like a dickhead because I understand the importance of nailing that reverse period. And, that is what is going to set you up to either go into a long growing phase where you're going to stay a lot leaner. And remember, you are going to partition nutrients better. You are going to build muscle miles better and have a much longer runway of progression when you start from a leaner set point. Okay, because inevitably, as calories taper up, you are going to accumulate some level of body fat, but you only ever want that to be quite marginal. And that only wants to be really, you should be able to stay lean for a 26 week period. If you've got lean first, if your training performance is in a good place, that is always going to be what is going to keep you a lot leaner. Your ability to be able to go in and train and perform. Now, obviously, the goal for me is not to be a 90 kilo bodybuilder. All right. I'm relatively light, to be honest. I'm like 73, 74 kg. I'm 5'8", so I am on the smaller side, but, I am relatively light. I think I carry muscle reasonably well, but I don't want to be much bigger, let's say. Now, I still want to build muscle, of course, but I don't want to, my goal is not to go into a 26 week surplus of calories and really take my body weight up. My goal is to maintain, a lean body composition, be able to build muscle still, have a little bit of balance and flexibility, but the majority of the time be regimented with my routine so I can perform at my best in the gym and out the gym. And also, I want to be able to incorporate running back into the mix as well, which I was doing prior. So prior, I got down to a sub 21. I think it was like a 21:03 5K, which is pretty decent considering I hadn't been at it that long. But obviously, 3 weeks out from the shoot, the running stopped, and then 3 weeks post shoot. So I've actually not been out on the roads for about 6 weeks. So I'm heading out tomorrow. and I am so excited. I cannot wait to get back on the roads. It'll just be a moderate intensity run, but I just can't wait to get amongst it and get back at it, to be fair. So yeah, really excited. So that'll be me, 4 weight sessions a week, probably build up to a couple of runs a week, maintain a good decent body composition, drive calories up, probably get them up in and around that sort of 2.7, 2.8 mark, and stay on the leaner side where I can still perform well in the gym, I can still take progressions, I can still add muscle tissue slowly, but hovering around about that maintenance point. My body weight was about 73.2 this morning. I'll probably come up to around about that 75, 76 kilo mark and look to stay on that leaner side. I feel like that's where, for me, looking the part year round is important. I want to make sure that I'm maintaining a decent body composition year round, and that is the goal. So I'm going to get stuck in to the upper body workout. So I'll give you a bit of an idea of how the workout was laid out. So we started with some abs, we then go into some push work, and then we finish with some pull work and some arms. So we're hitting all of the upper body, essentially. All of the upper body gets hit twice per week, and that's how I like it. Legs once per week because they're a stronger body part for me, and everywhere else gets hit twice. And I think that is a good frequency. If you're training hard, if your volume is allocated accordingly, in my opinion, I think hitting things twice a week, there is a lot of merit in that. I think you can recover from it well. You're giving your body more opportunity to build muscle or hold on to muscle in a diet. I'm not a fan of training split body parts where we're hitting chest once a week. I just think unless you're a genetic elite, you're at the top end of physique development or bodybuilding, I do think more frequency with less sets within that given day is going to yield a better result. If you think you can train something once per week or twice per week, that's 52 times a year or 104 times a year. What's going to elicit a better response? The higher frequency, without a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion. So get stuck into it. I'll talk you through the exercises and we'll go from there. Yes, gang, so we are active on exercise 1. So what we're doing here is starting with an ab machine crunch. Good machine, this one. Hammer Strength, so a decent brand. And yeah, I'll alternate ab work across the week. It'll be a variation of hanging leg raises and some type of a crunch, whether that's a rope crunch or whether that's an abdominal crunch. That means the abs are getting hit from every angle, from every area. I also do vacuums on a morning as well. So I do a lot of ab work. I like my midsection to be nice and tight and look the part. That is the goal for me. So 2 sets here. Around about that 8 to 10 sort of rep range. And what I'm thinking about here is, as I'm bringing my elbows down, I'm thinking of exhaling the air out. That's the best way that you can contract with your abs. Breathing in on the way up when we come back up to the beginning of the movement, and then breathing all the air out at the end, and just getting a really nice stretch and a squeeze of that ab as much as we possibly can. And taking it, pretty close to failure. I'm not absolutely grinding out the reps, but we're taking it pretty close to that failure point, and that was 2 sets total. So we are now into a cuffed side lateral raise. So 3 sets here on each arm. And with this one here, I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is they come far too out to the side. So they're bringing their arms directly to the side. Now, if we look at the mechanics of the side delt and how that actually comes out, more of a diagonal plane of motion, which is going to yield, a much better connection to the actual area that we're looking to try and target here. I am a little bit quick the way I'm bouncing out of the top of the movement. So that is something that I did watch back, and, I want to look to rectify in the further sets. But we're trying to take it as close to failure as we can here, and we're thinking about, dragging the hand down before we bring the arm up. A big mistake that I see is when people will allow that elbow to come up. They'll think about really dragging through the elbow, and then what ends up happening is they end up targeting the trap and all of the sort of wrong sort of areas. Whereas what we always want to think about doing is keeping that arm down before we bring it up, and you can see there how I'm able to place a lot of tension through the delt. The shoulder is not lifting up, the trap isn't engaged, and we're keeping all of the tension on the target area throughout the set. And as you can see here, you know, we're balls to the wall. We're taking those difficult reps. We're getting in that red zone, as I always say to clients. You know, we want to accumulate as many effective reps in that red zone as we can. That is what is ultimately going to yield the best possible response from each individual muscle group. So that was the focus here. We're back in for another set. So the third and final set being completed here. Again, if you look at how I did on the first video, there's a hell of a lot more control here. So this is where, you know, the merit in filming yourself and understanding where the gaps are in your training and having someone look over your training is absolutely key. I've had multiple coaches rip strips off me for my form and my execution, so I would like to think that it has improved somewhat over the years. It's absolutely still got plenty of work to do. You know, training is a skill and it takes time to be able to master it, but that absolutely smoked the delta. So I was happy with that set. I was happy with those sets that I completed, and you know, the shoulders are now warm and ready to go into some pressing. So into the Cybex incline machine here. I like this one because it's slightly higher in terms of its incline point, but also you get the converging element to it where basically, in simple terms, as you're driving up, the handles in your hands are able to be brought closer together. So I'm always thinking about, when I'm doing any sort of pressing movement, how can I drive the elbows across the body and create as much tension as I can. One mistake that I see is people allowing their shoulders to roll forward and they end up pressing with their front delt. Often why you see people with an overdeveloped front delt and not a particularly well-developed chest. So I'm always making sure that the thing I think about is keeping the shoulders pinned back at all times and thinking about driving the elbows across the body. Remember, the purpose of the chest is to allow us to drive the elbows across the body. If we didn't have a chest muscle there, that wouldn't be able to happen. So think about the mechanics of what it is that we're trying to do, and it's meaning that we're allowed to keep plenty of tension on the chest. The reps are slow, they're controlled. I'm really trying to squeeze the chest at the top of the movement, controlling the momentum and the weight back down. And we did 2 sets here where we pretty much reached a really good level of failure. So I was happy with the stimulus that I got from these 2 sets. So next exercise up is an incline pec fly machine. So I really like this movement actually. If it's done incorrectly, it can lead to a lot of strain on the shoulders. It's just about making sure that you don't let your shoulders externally rotate out and let your arms come too far down. You want to just have it at a point where you're getting a nice stretch. You're not bringing the arms too straight, and again, you're thinking about really driving the elbows across the body, which I am doing here. You know, we're getting a really nice stretch on the chest. The connection on this is fucking mad, to be fair. It's a hard movement. You don't need a lot of weight at all. I think it's about 10 kilos on here max, and it's more than enough to get what I need out of these sets. With movements like this, we're not necessarily always looking for load progression. We're looking to try and ultimately get the most out of the exercise, and that was just me doing a little bit of a stretch at the end of that particular set. But yeah, we're looking to get the most out of the exercise. How can we get as much stimulus as we can, as much connection, and drive as much blood into the chest as possible? And I think we managed that really, really well here. Again, 2 sets. You know, there's a good level of intensity to these. The elbows are coming across nicely. We're getting a really good contraction at the top. I'm squeezing down hard on the chest. These are probably just a little bit too quick. I would like to not bring that up as fast, to be honest, watching this back in reflection, which is always, you know, the benefit of watching these sets back and doing these types of voiceovers. But yeah, 2 sets here, and very much got a good pump. The chest was absolutely fried at the end of these 2 exercises, so that's when you know the work has been done. On to pull work now. So a couple of exercises of pull. So we've got a row and we've got a pull down. Starting off with this T-bar row that is new into the gym. Very, very nice bit of kit this. Allows us a full stretch at the bottom of the movement, allowing that scapula to fully stretch out. And then we're thinking about a hard contraction. We're thinking about a pencil being in between those shoulder blades and really driving those elbows back as far as we can. Very nice machine, this one. Happy with the form. the intensity on this one and also the overall execution as well in terms of how I'm actually able to control the weight. Yeah, could I have maybe got another one there? Yeah, but I tend not to take any sloppy reps where I feel like I'm unable to complete it, especially as I'm just starting to freshen things up and ramp things up. I think it's important to maintain that real good level of training quality. So I had to get myself into position there. But yeah, another set here. Happy with this here, how we were able to, really get a good connection on it. I was pleased with looking to take it to a really good point in terms of that intensity level and that control. And as you can see, keeping the spine nice and neutral, engaging that core, not allowing them shoulders to jump too far forward. And it was two really good quality sets here. I was happy with this. And you could swap this out for any sort of chest supported row, would work really nicely in this instance. But yeah, this one's new into One Gym, and it's very much one that I'm getting on with well. So from a row variation where we were doing a T-bar row, we're actually into another row variation as well. So we're into a seated sort of cable row here. Obviously the dual T-bar is a little bit different. That's going to work the upper back thickness itself, whereas here we're specifically targeting the lat. So we're trying to think about keeping that shoulder back, not allowing it to roll forward too much, and really driving down into that pocket and thinking about wrapping that elbow around that rib cage and around that sternum as much as we possibly can. A common mistake that you'll see people make is they'll have the elbow far too high up, which then starts to target all of the wrong areas and come into the rear delt. The lat runs, down the side of our body. Therefore, if we want to target it, we've really got to think about driving the elbow down and back from an up to down plane of motion as well. So something that you're taking from a slight height and you're driving down and dragging down will often allow you to be able to connect with the lat a lot better. We did 2 sets here, so 2 sets on the right arm, always making sure that we're taking adequate rest between arms. It's one big thing that I see when people are doing unilateral work, jumping straight into the other arm. You are going to be a little bit tired and fatigued from that, so just spending a good 60 to 90 seconds at least, letting that heart rate lower, in my opinion, is advantageous, and it's going to allow you to be able to perform a hell of a lot better when you're taking the adequate time between arms. So don't rush through these sets. We're keeping the form nice and tight, and we're driving the arm down and back, and we're looking to try and take this set as close to that failure point as we can to fully exhaust the lats. Obviously just 4 total sets of back work across this upper body session, but in my main pull session there's obviously a lot more. We're looking at about 8 sets, so 12 total sets across the week. Seems to work pretty well from me from a growth standpoint. And yeah, I was happy with how the main bulk of the session had gone and the work that I was able to complete and do. I think it was of a good quality, so happy with that. So finally now we're into a superset, so single arm cable curl. We're allowing the arm to stretch down as much as we can. We're trying to get a nice stretch in the bicep, and then we're really thinking about that hard contraction as we come up. We're not bringing it too far up. A common mistake that I'll see is there'll be more of an extension where the forearm then starts to curl and it starts to come up above shoulder height. That's not what we want. We want to try and make sure that we're keeping the tension on the bicep as much as we possibly can during the full range of motion. There's me just explaining to a woman that she's absolutely fine to walk past the camera. She got a little bit freaked out and a little bit scared. But yeah, into the other arm here now. We're looking to just, again, this is a movement that we're not particularly always tracking the load. We're just going on feel, what feels good. We're looking to take the sets to failure. We're looking to complete at least 12 reps minimum. I think, about 10 to 12 reps minimum. I think any lower than that on bicep work, I would rather, be in the double digits at least for my bicep work. I think that's what allows me to get the best connection and the best pump. And, my arms are a pretty strong point. My arms are decent, but they've still got plenty of work that I want to try and get done. I want them to grow. I think the key area of focus for me is the midsection, the chest and the arms. That's what I want to look the absolute best. And then here, we're supersetting that with a tricep push down, and triceps are looking pretty good there. Obviously I'm still pretty lean, but yeah, tricep push down here, keeping that tension through the tricep at all times, getting a nice stretch, keeping the elbows fixed in place, not allowing them elbows to ride up and come out of position, using enough load where I know 12 reps and upwards, the reps are going to start to become difficult. We're trying to drive as much tension through the tricep as we can. And as you can see here, plenty of blood in the triceps and plenty of good quality stimulus as well. And then we complete that again. So we do 3 rounds of this in total. I only filmed 2, but we're back onto the single arm cable curl. So again, we're allowing a nice stretch in the bicep here to be able to get as much out of it as we can. We're squeezing up, we're aiming to drive as much blood into the bicep as we can throughout this whole variation of this exercise. So hitting biceps a couple of times a week, as well as, I'll tag them on to the pull and the push session. So the pull and the push session have their own bicep and tricep work attached to them, and then we just do a bicep and a tricep on upper body day. So yeah, very much enjoyed this one. Enjoy working at a slightly faster pace. Not quite sure who I'm smiling at there. Can't even remember now, to be honest. But yeah, back into the other arm now. And yeah, overall, this was a good workout. I was pleased with where we currently are with things at the moment. This just gives you a little bit of a rundown and overview of how I feel like the session went in general. A little bit of a breakdown of the cues and what I'm looking to think about while I'm performing the exercise. I think the biggest thing that I want you to take away from this today, for any of you watching, is control. Control the end ranges. Remove momentum from your workouts. We're not powerlifters, like I said to you earlier. It's not just about moving weight from A to B. It's about the quality of the stimulus that we can get on the target muscle group. If you're using load that you've got no right to be using, you'll find that you're using all different muscle groups to move the weight than the muscle group that you're trying to actually target, which is actually going to mean that you don't make more progress. You actually start to regress. You start to go backwards because you're no longer connecting like you did before with a lighter load. So load isn't everything. It's stimulus what builds the muscle with the intensity to match it. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed that one. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll be back very, very soon with another video. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Take care.